I've always loved hiking, just me, the trees, and the quiet rustle of leaves. But last week, something happened on a solo trip deep in the Redwood National Park that I still quite wrap my head around. It wasn't scary, not really. It was magical. I have to share it with you. It was late afternoon. The sun was casting those long, beautiful golden rays through the canopy. I was way off the main trail, exploring a creek bed I'd never seen before. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and pine. That's when I heard it. It wasn't an animal sound I recognized. It was a soft, whimpering cry, like a lost puppy, but different. More human-like, almost. My first thought was that a child was lost. My heart jumped into my throat. I called out, "Hello, is anyone there? Do you need help?" But the only reply was another one of those plaintive little cries. It sounded like it was coming from a dense thicket of ferns just ahead. I pushed aside the fronds, my boots sinking into the soft mud, and my eyes landed on something that made me freeze. Curled up at the base of a giant redwood, shivering, was a tiny creature. It was covered in shaggy, reddish-brown fur, from the top of its little round head to its disproportionately large feet. Its face was surprisingly human-like, with big, dark, soulful eyes that were wide with fear and glistening with tears. It couldn't have been more than 2 feet tall. It looked up at me, let out a tiny whimper, and my brain just short-circuited. My first coherent thought was, this is a baby something. Every instinct told me to back away, that this was impossible, that its mother had to be nearby. And trust me, the thought of a protective 9-foot-tall mama, Bigfoot crashing through the trees, was definitely on my mind. But this little thing, it looked so helpless and so alone. It wasn't making any move to run. It just sat there, trembling. Slowly, I knelt down, trying to make myself as small and non-threatening as possible. I held out my hand, palm up, and spoke in the softest voice I could manage. "Hey there, little guy. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Its big, dark eyes blinked at me. It sniffled, a sound that just broke my heart, and then it did something I never would have expected. It crawled forward, unsteadily, and reached out a small, furry hand with 5 distinct fingers. It was a moment of pure trust. I stayed completely still as it shuffled closer. Its little hand touched my outstretched fingers. Its fur was coarse, but surprisingly soft underneath. It sniffled again, and then, with a little burst of courage, it clambered into my lap, buried its face in my jacket, and clung to me like I was the only solid thing in its world. I just sat there, stunned, holding this tiny, impossible creature. It was so light, maybe 20 pounds at most. I could feel its little body shaking, and I instinctively wrapped my arms around it, rubbing its back to try and comfort it. It smelled like wet dog, pine needles, and something else. A wild, musky scent that was totally unfamiliar. As it calmed down, it started making these soft, cooing sounds like a baby monkey. I looked around frantically. Where was its family? How did it get here, all alone? I checked it over for any visible injuries, but it seemed perfectly fine, just scared and cold. I had an apple in my backpack, so I broke off a small piece and offered it. It sniffed it cautiously, then took a tiny bite with its surprisingly flat teeth. Its whole face lit up, and it gobbled down the piece before looking up at me for more, making a happy little chirping sound. I sat there with my new little friend for what felt like an hour, maybe longer. The sun was getting lower, and I knew I had to start heading back before it got dark. But how could I leave it? The thought was unbearable. It seemed to have adopted me completely. It was now nestled against my chest, occasionally peeking out to look at the forest with a newfound curiosity now that it had a protector. Just as I was trying to figure out what on earth to do, a sound echoed through the woods that made the hair on my arms stand up. It was a deep, resonant call, not a roar, but a powerful, low-frequency hoot, almost like an owl but with a depth and power that vibrated right through my chest. The little guy in my lap instantly sat bolt upright. His ears, which I hadn't even noticed before, perked up. He answered with a series of high-pitched chirps and clicks. A moment later, the call came again, closer this time, And then I saw movement in the shadows about 100 yards away. A massive, dark shape, moving with a silent, fluid grace that was breathtaking. It was tall, easily over 8 feet, and covered in the same reddish-brown fur as the baby. It stepped partially into a clearing, and I could see a face that was weathered and wise, with the same deep-set, intelligent eyes as the little one. It wasn't threatening. It just stood there, watching us. The little creature in my lap started wiggling, desperate to get down. He looked from me to the large figure and back again, letting out excited chirps. I knew what I had to do. With a heavy heart, I gently set him on the ground. He stood there for a second, looked back at me, and did something amazing. He toddled back, reached up, and patted my knee with his little hand, as if to say thank you. Then, he turned and bounded off toward the large figure, running with a surprising speed on those big feet. The tall creature knelt down, scooped him up in one massive arm, and held him close. For a long moment, it just stood there, looking at me. There was no menace, just an acknowledgement, a look of gratitude, maybe. Then, as silently as it appeared, it turned and melted back into the deep woods, and they were gone. I sat there, alone again, until the woods were nearly dark. My jacket was covered in reddish fur and smelled faintly of pine and musk. Was it all a dream? But the apple core was there, and the faint imprints in the mud were real. I hiked back to my car in a daze, my mind racing. I didn't get any pictures. I didn't get any proof. Part of me is glad I didn't. It felt like a sacred moment, something not meant to be captured and put on display. I haven't told many people this story. Most would think I'm crazy, and I get it. But I know what I saw. I know what I held. It was a moment of connection with something wild and wonderful. Something science says shouldn't exist. It taught me that there are still mysteries in this world, wonders hidden in the deep woods, waiting for those quiet enough to hear them. It changed the way I see the forest forever. Now when I go hiking, I'm always listening, always watching, hoping for another glimpse of magic. Thanks for listening to my story. I know it's a lot to take in, but it's something I just had to share. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had an unexplainable experience in the wild. I'd love to hear about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures. Until next time, stay curious.